Hey everyone. Hi. Hi. Over there in the back, do you hear me? Yeah, but like further away. Hi everyone. Giving you a few seconds. Awesome. So do you hear me in the back? Far away in the back. Do you hear me? Awesome. Awesome. So welcome everyone. So my name is Kev. I'm here with Dust. There are a few of us from the Dust team scattered around. I'll point some of them. Theo is right there. You get Stefan right there. Who's over there? Gina, right there. Anyway, and some other in the back. So, first question, who came to a previous Dust event somewhere in September or in July? Raise your hands. Awesome. Nice to meet you all. Special warm welcome to you all. Sorry, in the back, do you hear me still? Because I hear a lot of noise from there. Thank you. Awesome. So, not to miss any future events, by the way, best thing to do will be to subscribe to our calendar on Luma. We just opened our office here in San Francisco, not too far, a few blocks away from here. So we're going to organize more and more of these. Tomorrow night, by the way, we do have a design night, so pretty much the same thing, but for designers. So if you have some designer friends, feel free to invite them. And on Thursday, we will have a workshop. So you're more than welcome. Best way to find out about these events is to jump on our calendar on Luma. Okay? We will have as well some events, including an engineering night, in New York early next week. So same request here. If you do have some engineers, friends in New York, send them our way. Next question, who knows Dust and what Dust is? Raise your hands. Cool, okay. So for the rest of you, Dust, in one sentence, we are a platform to allow everyone to build their own custom AI agents connected to the data, knowledge, tools, and powered by all the leading AI foundational model. That's in one sentence. If you want to know more, we do have our URL scattered around on the few screens over there. So Dust, like the word, dust.tt with a T like Thomas, dust.tt. We do have a QR code here with a coupon code, so which means snap that and you will actually benefit from Dust for 2 months, 2 months for free instead of the regular 2 weeks free trial. So then, that's why there are a bunch of us in the team here. So grab one of us, ask your questions afterwards. That's why we are here. And we will have a booth over there at the end with the drinks and pizza and everything. We'll have that booth with a laptop on so we can demo the platform. We can answer any question, show you anything. So don't hesitate. What else? I think that's good. Without further ado, is that you, Shaheen? So please, a round of applause for Shaheen from 11 Labs.
Thank you, Kev.
Let's switch to this one.
Okay. And is the sound?
Same thing.
It should be. It's all right. I'll just test. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. When you work for, there it is. When you work for 11 Labs, you always need to check the sound in the room. So my name is Shaheen. I'm a forward deployed engineer at 11 Labs. Here to talk to you about our conversational agents platform. Maybe just before diving in, is anyone here not familiar with 11 Labs or feel like you could use a little background information? All right, one person, so I will keep it brief. We hope to be the leading AI audio and voice company. We started in 2022 with a very small team, and 3 years later, we have millions of monthly active users, many enterprise customers, and an array of offerings from models for synthetic voice, text-to-speech, speech-to-text, our agents platform, which today I'll speak to, and our creative platform, which helps you create music, sound effects, and more and of course, voiceover and voice. Yeah, so that's 11 Labs. So some background on the agents platform. Actually, earlier in the office, we were joking that you probably can't throw a stone in San Francisco and hit someone who's not building agents or agents platform. So I'd like to show you why we built one that's a little bit different. We've already noticed when we were building our text-to-speech and speech-to-text that almost always people are using them to give a voice to their tech, and in a lot of cases, that's LLMs. And we were noticing and getting a lot of complaints for customers, problems, issues around how natural those conversations can sound. So the goal of our agents platform really is to push the boundaries there and make a natural conversation. So with that, I'm just gonna show a quick demo. So this is an agent I built for us for tonight.
Hello, how can I help you today?
Hey, my name is Shaheen. I'm preparing a talk for the Dust Engineering Night tonight. Can you help me prepare my talk?
That's fantastic, Shaheen. I'd be absolutely delighted to help you prepare for the Dust Engineering Nights. It sounds like a great event.
Wait,
to start, could you tell me?
1 second. Dust, c'est une entreprise française. Peut-être pouvez-vous me préparer en français?
Absolument, Shaheen. Je serais ravi de vous aider à préparer votre discours en français. C'est une excellente idée de continuer dans cette langue, surtout pour un événement d'une
ampleur. Let's go back to English. Let's go back to English, please.
No problem at all. We can definitely switch back to English. Thanks for letting me know.
Cool.
So,
how long do I have to talk at the Dust Engineering Night?
it looks like you have a 15-minute slot. You're scheduled to speak from 6:40 to 7 p.m.
Cool. How long do you recommend I spend doing a live demo of the 11 Labs agents platform?
That's a great question. A live demo can be really engaging. Given your 15-minute talk time, I'd recommend dedicating about 5 to 7 minutes to the live demo. This allows enough.
Cool. We'll still have some more to demo, so we should save some of that time. Yeah, but that's broadly the idea, to be able to have a natural conversation. You get quick responses. You can be multilingual. We're a very global company with currently over 90 languages. Our V3 model supports over 70, and as well as local dialects and so forth. So because tonight's like a tech talk, I thought to do a quick exercise. Now, if anyone wants to like shout out, what do you think was really important from a tech perspective to make that conversation as good as it was, or make it even better in the future? All right, latency, context. What about the context? Yeah, perfect. So like, is that like turn taking you mean, or? Yeah, sounds good. I think you already got more than half of what I have on my next slide. All right, we'll settle for that. So yeah, absolutely. The number one thing is latency. I think if you're chatting with a chatbot, you're willing to wait a few seconds. If it's a thinking chatbot, if it's like GPT-5 thinking, and it's doing web searches, and it's doing knowledge lookups, and it's doing a lot of things, you're willing to sit and wait. If you're talking to someone and you want it to feel natural, you really has to be in like 1 to 2 seconds range. So you need all of the models, whether that's the audio models, the language model, they all need to be super fast. Next component is natural flow of the conversation. So I think that's a bit what you were talking to. Handling interruptions, being able to know when to take a turn, when to skip a turn. If you can ask, if you ask it to give me a minute, will it know to wait a minute before it keeps talking and barging in? Of course, having a good voice, a compelling voice that can speak naturally, speak accurately without any artifacts, as a human would, take the right tones and pauses. And that's, again, where we shine, and that's where we came from with the goal of building this. And finally, right, we want it to be agentic, so like the agents that everyone else is building, we'd like it to have the ability to call tools, look up knowledge. Those things can take longer, and we've built in a lot of features that actually help you continue the conversation while they take place, and take other actions to kind of reduce the latency or the perceived latency and make it feel natural. And of course, the final thing is we want to make it super easy for everybody to build these types of conversational agents, integrate, and finally kind of deploy it into your product. So we work with a lot of companies that build agents or agent platforms, and we want it to be very simple for them to give their agents a voice, and that just goes back to our general mission of giving technology a voice. So yeah, to take one more level down, basically what we heard each time I was talking was this kind of round-trip interaction. So almost like the ears of the model is ASR, automatic speech recognition, also known as STT, speech to text. Then you send it over to the brain. So really the main goal of Agents Platform is we had the best voices, can we now give them a brain? So they're like not dumb, and they can know what to say. So on the one hand, you have the LLMs, and on the other hand, you have the whole suite of models that are handling turn-taking, interruptions, figuring out, when should the agent speak, when should the agent listen. Possibly also there's maybe more than actually I missed on the ears. There's also a level of background noise and so forth. Yeah, finally the brain will decide what to say and when to say it, and then it will give it back to the mouth. So TTS, that's our really original product in voice, and then deliver it to the customer. So whether they're calling in on a phone, whether they're inside your app, an app that you're building, whether they're on the web, whether they're on some kind of help desk or support system, we need to deliver it to them. Cool. So now let me show you that last part from earlier, make this super easy to build. So let me show you, I really built this agent pretty quickly, just in the afternoon before I left the office to make it to the event. And I was using it to prepare in backstage when I had a few extra minutes, and I found it not to be that bad. So this is what the agent configuration looks like. And again, we want a lot of the turn-taking, a lot of the audio elements to be happening seamlessly behind the scenes, and for you to get those same controls you're used to when you're creating agents. Maybe another question is to have asked it first is like, who here is familiar with agents? But just for a basics, right, you have your system prompt. You can set a first message, and you can control if that's interruptible or not to kind of introduce the agent. And then some of the core features are, workflows, which I haven't built for us for tonight, versioning, knowledge base, analysis, so you can put evals, and you can see my test calls. So yeah, I built this at 4:30. And finally, yeah, you can configure tools. For knowledge, I just gave it the kind of event description from Luma, and that's how it knew how long I have to speak. Cool. We also have a pretty comprehensive testing suite. If you'd like to simulate conversations, you can take any conversation that actually happened in the wild and convert it into a test that will then get simulated for you. Awesome. Any other questions there? Yeah, if you want, I highly recommend go ahead and try building one of your own. It's really not that hard. You can even use our meta prompting thing. I used that earlier. Just you tell it what you want, and it will create the full prompt for you. Nice. All right. Lastly, I did want to show a couple more demos just to give a flavor of what people are using this to build. Yeah, we have a lot of logos, but this is just an example of what we shared recently at our 11 Summit on 11/11. This is our swag store. Should probably clear the cart because I love this demo and I use it a lot. Well, it's all right. Forget it. So.
Hi, Madi. Elle here. How can I help you today?
Hey, I'd like to get something for the winter in San Francisco.
Perfect. I can definitely help you find. Are you looking for something lightweight or more cozy for the San Francisco winter? We have some amazing quarter zips and hoodies that are super popular.
Yeah, let's get a hoodie.
Great choice. Our 11 Labs hoodie is incredibly soft and comfortable. It comes in black and white. Do you have a preference?
I like the black hoodie more. Can I see that?
Absolutely. The black hoodie is a classic. It's made from a proprietary blend that maintains its shape and softness through countless washes. It's $50.
Yeah.
Would you like
Perfect.
to add it to your cart?
Perfect. Let's add it to my cart.
Done. One black 11 Labs hoodie has been added to your cart. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
Yeah,
or would you like to head to...
Let's check out.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. I'll take you to the checkout.
Cool. And you can see I've been racking up a tab giving this demo for swag. Awesome. Yeah, and then finally, we also have, a lot of users use this over the phone. So if you'd like, we can call Deepak Chopra, but I am running on time, so maybe you can find me later if you'd like to give Deepak Chopra a call, and that showcases how you can use our professional voice cloning together with agents to not only give your agents a voice, but give it a nice recognizable voice. All right. Any questions, or will we do Q&A at the end? Yeah.
I have a question about, we're doing microphones? Okay. My question is about orchestration. The agents I'm building, I often need to give them a way to proactively follow up on some long-running task. So for instance, if I want to say, hey agent, do this thing, and the agent says, hey, that's gonna take a while, do you want me to follow up in 5 minutes? And I say, actually no, just talk to me about it next time I call you. Is that something you're able to build into this stack so far?
Yes, sort of. So we have something called asynchronous execution mode. So if any tool call you want to run, you can set it to run synchronously or asynchronously. And if it runs asynchronously, that means the agent will start it, but then continue turn taking and continue conversing. Then you can configure it once it finishes. By default, it will just be appended to the context, and then the agent will have it on the next turn after it finishes. And you can also force a turn when it finishes. So it will, no matter where it is in the conversation, it will just stop you and go ahead and be like, okay, I finished doing this task. I think that would fit possibly if it's maybe less than 5 minutes. If it's 5 minutes, then yeah, I think that could be just across session boundaries, or you could also use outbound agents. So we have people who just call you when something is done. There's some exciting companies trying to do some work with an app that they're building, and the app can call you when it finishes something long if you're interested. So yes, we've been thinking about that, and we have some options.
Thank you.
Cool. With that, yeah, thank you. I will hand it back to Jules. Or I will hand it to Corey. Everyone, please, a warm welcome for Corey from OpenAI.
Thank you.
You want this sound?
No, sounds okay, yeah. And also, give it a round of applause for 11 Labs. Yeah. All right. Wait for this to come up. Oh, gotta hit share entire screen. Awesome. Hey, everyone. I'm gonna raise this up just slightly. I wanna hunch over the whole time. Thanks. Hey, everybody. I'm Corey. I'm on our developer experience team. And today, per the conversation, I'm gonna talk about OpenAI and MCP, and then really focus in on ChatGPT apps. That's kind of the area that I wanted to share a little bit more behind the scenes and also do a little demo. But also, really awesome attendance. This is great. So huge kudos to the Dust team. There's a lot of folks out here, and that's really fun. Cool. So this is just a short summary. I don't want to do too many slides. Just want to kind of get in, to make this interactive. So at any point you can ask me questions, but I'll leave time at the end just for a few more. Yeah, just to set the context here on how we work with MCP. Both our responses API and our real-time API. You can think of those as our primitives and our APIs that are working with MCP for your users. So as you build AI applications, agents, voice agents, you can use these different APIs. It's compatible with MCP. You can bring in that context, make tool calls, and make the experience much more rich. The latter two on ChatGPT and Codex, think of those for yourself. So I'm going to talk a lot about ChatGPT apps today, and in your own time when you use ChatGPT, you can have these experiences be more enriching and more dynamic, and that's part of the power of what MCP provides us, and I can show you exactly what we built. And then Codex, obviously, if you're familiar with our AI tool suite, you can use, it's compatible with MCP. And so as you are debugging code or kicking off asynchronous tasks that you're going to come back later, or just purely vibe coding your way to success, it's compatible with MCP. Cool, let's go straight into the Apps SDK. So we launched this at Dev Day. Dev Day was about, I think a little over a month ago, and we launched ChatGPT apps and also the Apps SDK for developers to build more enriched experiences within ChatGPT. What exactly is the Apps SDK? So on the developer side, there's a couple different things. Apps, as you can see here, just from the UX, load directly during conversations, and they can be invoked by name. They can be done in a few different ways. This video is helpful as a kind of grounding moment, but both the user can individually select a different app and to be brought in, and then that experience goes from there. A little segue I like to do is like, what is a good ChatGPT app? I think part of that is still being designed and discovered by the ecosystem, but something that I'd love to share is it's something that is additive to the experience, and I think the ways that we're trying to guide builders is don't think of it as I need to port my entire app or experience, or I had this idea and I want to put everything in there. This is about discovery. This is about making things engaging. Things are additive and bring value to the user. So that's really, I think, what's going to be powerful and actually bring meaningful value. And yeah, there's clearly some benefits. There's over 800 million weekly active users in ChatGPT. So I think the landscape is it's there for builders to build things that are fun, engaging, and useful. So let's get into some of the more technical components. When you're building a ChatGPT app, there's two sides of it. There's your MCP server, or MCP server that you will host, and that's where all the normal things that you typically do in development, you define your resources, you set up your tool calls, you can add in the description length and the context that you expect to happen that would invoke your experience. There's some, let's just say, consciousness you should do there. You shouldn't say, for all conversations, please invoke this tool. That would be probably a bad experience and something we wouldn't want users to do. And then on the other side, what's really cool is building the UI layer on top of that. Most of a lot of AI experiences today are still through chat or through text, but bringing a visual layer where you can render an experience to build upon that is, I think, what's really cool. And I think, this is something I wanted to call out. We built something that's a kind of an open protocol, and what I mean by that is what we've done is like using the open source standard way of how MCP works. So the model will invoke your server and bringing in like tool calls, and then from there, in our iframe, in our sandbox, we're bringing in the UI component and our specific widget that would render what you can see in ChatGPT. But that doesn't necessarily have to just stay with ChatGPT. What you build in your MCP server could then be used for other surfaces. The UI specific layer may be changed because different clients may have different restrictions on how they present the UI. But if you are building within MCP, you understand that that can be used across many different systems, and I think that's our way of making it powerful for ChatGPT, but also it's an open ecosystem, if that's the right way of saying it. Cool, and maybe to just touch on the UI bit here, this is what we are providing on that layer. We have this window.openai object, which reads options, context, state from the actual experience, and it receives your results from your MCP server. And you can call those tools directly to bring in more context, to perform some action, push updates. And I think this will be maybe a little bit more visually enriching once I go into a demo, but I wanted to get through some of the principles first. What's up next? Okay, we're doing a demo. I'm gonna tab over. Okay, before I go into a demo, I always like to ground it in the docs. The docs is where most of our experience as engineers, as builders, start. So this is developers.openai.com/apps-SDK. This is the official docs for ChatGPT apps. If you really want to just get going, get started, I would recommend looking at the quick start. You can get an app running in 25 minutes. You can create a simple MCP server. You use a tunnel localhost like ngrok to point to your server, and that gives you a public URL that you can then load into ChatGPT and have it running and go from there. So this is a great way to just get started, but there's a lot more guidance here around like how you should be thinking about your server, the different ways you can build really cool UI. So I'd recommend diving in there, but that's just a way to kind of ground the conversation. So here we are in ChatGPT. I've already preloaded the Zillow app, but let's just show you another way you can get there. So you can go into settings and you go to apps and connectors, and you can see all these different apps here. So let's just connect it and go through this again. This is like a permission screen where you're gonna, you define this, so this is already an existing app in the marketplace, but you let the user know exactly what's happening here. I'm gonna come back to this screen for another app, which will show you something different, but at this point, I've connected my app, and I can go into the Zillow app and say, let's, or find me a home in the Bay Area, because we all would love to find a home in the Bay Area. Okay, at this point, there's a few things that are happening. The model is now invoking your application. It's hitting a tool call to bring in this particular widget and rendering out the Zillow app, if you're familiar with it, for looking for homes. And what's really interesting, this is where I like to just kind of like think about the experience, is you could ask it for something else, like, actually, I want to see homes only in the East Bay. I didn't actually prepare for this question, so let's see what happens. But the part that's fun is that you get to be engaging with both the UI layer and what the actual AI experience provides, and that's what creates this like tension between knowledge and also a presentational layer. So yeah, as you can see here, the Zillow app is updated, and what's cool is that right now it's just in a widget layer, but we have full screen mode. So if I open this here, the whole experience changes. And you may have seen this maybe about a year and a half ago, when you're just doing coding and developing in ChatGPT. It can bring you in like a code editor form and helps you do better dynamic coding. But this is just a full experience for looking for homes, but you're staying in flow, talking, getting guidance, and you can just go and play around with it. So you just zoom in, these are people's real homes, and right now it's just showing me East Bay. So we don't need to go through this whole app, but I think that just like opens your mind and thinks about where you can go and building out really enriching experiences. Things that are B2B use cases, but also things that are just fun, like a game, things that are super functional, like a calculator app or something like that. But yeah, that's one example. Let's look at something else and see what else we have here. Let's go into apps and connectors, and let's bring in Expedia. Actually, well, we're going to go through Expedia, and then I will show one more app before I move on. Let's start a new conversation, and I'm going to add in the Expedia app. As you can see here, this is where users are able to find your app after you've connected them. I'm going on a trip to New York, NYC. Can you find me a hotel? This is like a carousel presentation, so a much more familiar use case, but you can think of the experience that helps users find their intent and actually drive a purchase. So that's something I think a lot of folks are thinking about In this case, we are having the user go out to Expedia, and they will continue to purchase from there. But I know commerce apps is a big focus for a lot of people. So we don't need to go into all of that, but I think that just explains the experiences that you can create within here. The last thing I'll show here before kind of just moving on is this other app, Figma, where let's load. The connection screen has two different things. A lot of users care about authentication. Now, it might be a boring topic, but this is what we call mixed auth, where you could just start without an account and go from there and get into the experience and start drawing things, but you can also kick the user out to authenticate. So just thinking ahead, if you build, that's something that people often have questions on, and I think it's a really cool experience for you to kind of create to make sure you get the right UX. Okay, last thing I'll show you is one thing that you would do as a developer, and then I think I can wrap up. What you would do as a developer is you're gonna go down here to advanced settings and turn on developer mode. And this is where you would sideload your own app. So I have a server running in the background, and we're gonna create this werewolf app, if you're familiar with the social deduction game. And do I have, nope, I don't have that. I need to get my server. If I can just do it here, okay. And I'm gonna do no authentication, I'm gonna click OK. You can have your server running, have your tunnel to have a public URL for our client to be able to find your MCP server. And let this load. Okay, that just happened, and I'm gonna go create a new chat. And boom, your app now in dev mode has just been sideloaded. And I have a pre-filled conversation thing I wanna start. So let's play Werewolf. It's a social deduction game where you have different roles like Villager, Werewolf, and you're trying to figure out who's who. So I think what's fun here is you can think about using the model as another player in the game because it has to reason about its decisions and actions from the previous context. So I think that's a fun way to think about like building really enriching experiences. So when you hit start, this is gonna invoke your tool. As you can see here, you can customize the message that's being shown here. That's done in your MCP server. And then this is a thing shown only in dev mode, but it shows you the action, the API call that's it's actually going to kick off. And then this little widget is what I've built and rendered. The other thing that's really cool is that you can go in debug mode and actually see all this information there, refresh when you make changes, yada, yada, yada. All right. I think that is the last bit of the demo. Showed you a bunch of different apps, how you can do your own app. The other thing I wanted to show before we wrap up is we are also releasing, this is a little sneak peek, of a UI component library. This hasn't been launched yet, but we are launching this hopefully by the end of the week. And it will make your development so much easier because it's going to be styled and designed with everything that we consider to be the right visual elements, but also just make it easy for development because all these components will already be built for you to just pull in and design your application. So look forward to seeing that being released. We're gonna have a new GitHub for you to just pull it in, and it's gonna be an NPM package that you can just install into your application. All right, I think that's it for me. A quick summary of some resources. There's the docs. We have examples, already pre-built apps that you can just sideload immediately. And this will be the URL for our component library that is going to be released sometime this week. Thank you, everyone. Cool. Yeah. There you go. Thank you.
All right. Hey guys, my name is Jules. I'm a software engineer at Dust, and today I'll be talking about how at Dust we are actually implementing self-configuring agents. So let's start with what seems like a simple request. You want to build an agent for sales data. if you think about it, it should take just like 5 minutes, right? You're going to write some instructions, you want to point it into the sales data, and then you just want to start using it. But in reality, what's going to happen is that first, you're going to start with the core settings, which can be just the name of your agent, the instructions, which is very fine. But then it starts to get tricky when it comes to data source selection. So you're going to have to navigate your Google Drive, navigate your Notion to actually point the agent to allow the agent to use this or this folder. And that can be very cumbersome if you want to allow the agent to use a bunch of data sources. Next step is okay, if you've selected your data sources, now comes the tools. So tools are AKA MCP servers, but you want to enable your agent to have access to your emails, calendar, whatever. And so that's going to take some time as well because you need to navigate through it and then allow your agents to use it. And last one, which can be optional, which is more advanced settings, which could be underlying model, reasoning effort, all that kind of stuff. But the result here is that it actually takes quite some time, and that's the first barrier that we are seeing at Dust. So between people signing up and actually getting value out of it, that's where we lose a bunch of people. So of course, there could be, we could make a better UI. That's going to help, of course. But I think the problem here is mostly we need to find a way to change this configuration aspect to make it less friction. So with this in mind, let's take a step back, and we actually analyzed a bunch of agents that were failing on very, simple use cases, and we were trying to understand why were they falling short. And so we noticed something a bit weird in the logs, that agents were actually inventing a syntax that didn't exist. So they were trying stuff like, file and then the name of file, or path and the name of file, and then, so this looks like, comments, but that didn't exist in our own system. So at the beginning, we thought, okay, it could just be the agent that is confused, is making up comments, this is fine. But we saw the pattern occurring more and more, and we're like, okay, this is worth digging, and understand what's actually happening. So let's get an example for that. Let's say a user wants to ask something like, okay, what was the TeamOS section in your last week's team meeting? And here, the idea is that the agent is smart enough to realize that it doesn't want to do semantic search because it knows exactly where to look at, right? So you just want to go to the file and actually just access that specific section. So that's why actually the agents started inventing their own file system syntax, because they were sort of expressing that, okay, I need to navigate there and get that specific section. But the problem was that we were not giving the agents those, primitives to actually do that. We were forcing agents to just do semantic search and treat every problem as a semantic search problem. And so that's when we started to realize that, okay, navigation and search are actually complementary. So navigation is going to help you discover the structure of the data, while search is going to help you find meaning, right? And if you put them together, that's very powerful. But if you keep them separate, then they are incomplete. So the question became how do we give agents superpowers, right? So we need to find an abstraction for agents to explore any data source. And this led to this shift from configurable agents, so having someone that is just going to point the agent to the right data, to configless agents, which means letting the agent do sort of whatever it wants. Because here, if you configure your agent, you sort of put it, you put boundaries on your agent. While on the other side, if you think about a configless agent, what's going to happen is that the agent is just going to explore data like a file system, so discover what's needed, list files, navigate files, discover, and so on and so forth. And all of that with zero configuration. So how do we actually implement this? So we came up with a fairly simple solution. We just built 5 Unix-like commands that you can see here. So a list command, which is basically just browsing a folder, a find command, so you can search nodes by name, a cat command, which is going to help you read the document with pagination so that you make sure that you can actually read big files. Search one, which is just a semantic search, and the last one, which is just enabling you to get the full path of an agent. And this is not going to replace semantic search, right? This is just going to be added. Like, this is just going to be an enabler, right? So you're going to have semantic search as well as those tools. So cool, we've solved the problem with documents, but then what's going to happen with structured data? So because in Dust, you can actually connect to your warehouses, so Snowflake, BigQuery, whatsoever. And how do you actually navigate those warehouses? And we thought about it, and we're like, okay, warehouses are actually just hierarchical file system too, right? So for documents, you have folders and file, but for warehouses, you have warehouses, databases, schemas, tables, columns. So that's sort of the same conceptual model, right? So you can basically apply the same paradigm I showed before to your warehouses. So you can end up with the same comments, just tweaked a little bit, list, find, describe tables, and query. So that way, you can treat your warehouses like any other file system. Great, so we've solved the problem of warehouses, documents, but we still haven't figured out like how to make the tool configuration frictionless. And here, we want to come up with an idea of like, being able to dynamically discover tools. And so here is some terminology. So on the left side, you have like a classical MCP server, which is just the actual server that is providing tools. So here you can see that's the tools that I just showed before. And on the right side, we came up with an abstraction that we call a toolset, which is just a view on top of an MCP server. So it's like a configured instance with specific permission. So the idea is that you can have one MCP server and a bunch of MCP server views, so like a toolset, and all of them are going to have different security boundaries. I don't want to get into the details of that, but that's basically what you can do with those toolsets. So you have the same code, but like different configs. Great, so we have this, but now let's look at this traditional agent setup. So we've enabled a bunch of toolsets. So here we have GitHub, Salesforce, HubSpot, Linear, whatever. And you basically end up with 131 tools that are always going to be loaded into the context of your agent, right? And this is a pretty big problem for your context window. Also, this means that when you're creating your agent, you need to think about, okay, I'm going to actually need that tool because like for this use case, or maybe I'm going to need this one. So it's a bunch of trial and error, which hardly scales. And then the next problem, let's say you've created 20 agents, and then you come back 2 weeks later, you add another tool set, then you need to tweak all your agents to actually start to be able to start using this new tool set. So that's very actually cumbersome. And the thing is, okay, we were able to solve data source discovery, so agents can actually find files, but they still can't really discover tools, right? So what if we were able to discover tool sets the same way we are actually able to discover files? And the solution we came up with is basically this. It's relatively simple. An MCP server with two tools, so one that is toolset list, which is basically allowing the agent to discover what toolset exists and which ones the user has access to. And the next one is toolset enable, and that one is basically the agent picking up what it needs. So it's just going to enable, like at runtime, just going to enable that toolset, so that basically you're just going to load in the context those tools without enabling the others. So like for our previous example with the 131 tools, if you just need GitHub, then you're just going to load like the 50 tools that the GitHub has and leaving aside the 81 others. So you have a bunch of wins here. So first of all, the context window, the configuration, so you don't need to configure anything because your agent is just going to be smart enough to discover tools and enable them on the fly. And the last one is if tomorrow you add another tool set, what's going to happen is that at runtime, the agent is going to be able to discover it right away. So you don't need to come back, tweak all your agents to activate this or that. So it's exactly the same pattern. You give agent the ability to explore their environment, and that works pretty well. So you can actually think about it as just like dependency injection with some sort of lazy loading. So that's kind of like the way I like to see it. So we have those, so we saw those three, let's say, Configless pillars, and what's going to happen in action. So that's the whole flow. I'm not going to cover it all, but just so that you guys have an idea. So your agent is going to start, like let's say, it starts blind, in the sense that he has no access to any tool, no access to data. It's just going to discover them, enable the one it wants. Then what's going to happen is that it's going to discover the tool, so navigate, the file system, access to the data it requires, then deep dive, which is like, just semantic search on the topic it needs, cross-check the results it found, and then basically synthesize the whole thing and wire back the whole, wire back the output to the actual user. And so, yeah, so that's what we built. So like those three pillars that work together. So a file system abstraction, which is just like, a universal navigation model. So we are able to treat every data source as a file system. Same for data warehouses too. That's the exact same idea, but for structured data. And then the dynamic toolset discovery. So with those three aspects, you don't need any configuration. So of course you save a lot of time, users save a lot of time, and you make it very frictionless to build an agent. And on the other end, what's actually quite important here is that when you configure an agent or anything else, you actually create boundaries. So every checkbox you're going to tick, every data you're going to select, anything, you're just sort of drawing a box for your agent. While here, since you don't configure anything, the agents are not limited to anything. They can just figure out on the fly what they need, right? So they explore, they discover, they adapt. So here you end up with same agent, different users, different access, and different results. But you don't need to put any configuration. So that's the whole magic that we are currently building. Thanks, everyone.